Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Going over today's MLB main slate for today on DraftKings. We have a really good 13-game slate, which I think this is a really fun slate today. So I'm really looking forward to it. And anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate that. And I want you guys to answer a question in the comments below. So who is your favorite spend up pitcher today? So who's your favorite SP1 and who's your favorite value bet of the day? Because there's plenty of options to go with either. So I want to see who you guys are interested in before I get into this in the comments below. So leave your comment now. And anyway, let's get into the slate. Actually, I gotta do some plugging first. So if you want access to this cheat sheet and the pitching model and the hitting model, and I will show you guys an example of what you'd get really quick here. You can join me on Patreon. We have over 40 members, and we also have a Slack chat. You can answer questions, and I'll show you Patreon pretty soon here. But for an example of the MLB sheet, so let's go to the outfield today. So one of my favorite plays is JD Martinez. I do like pretty much all the guys up here, but so JD Martinez today going against Ryan Carpenter. So JD's probably my favorite play of the entire slate. He is crushing lefties this season. He's got a 431 ISO versus them, 485 WOBA, just absolutely mashing them. And the Detroit, we all know the Detroit bullpen is not very good, which I do have the bullpen data up here. You'll see pretty soon here. But Ryan Carpenter, he's just not a good pitcher. He's got an ERA above 8, xFIP around 6, low strikeout rate, high walk rate. Not a good pitcher. And versus righties, he's allowing a 287 ISO over 400 WOBA. And I just don't think this ends well for him. He's bad versus lefties too, so I think everyone's going to tee off versus him. And the bullpen is, I believe it is the worst on the entire slate. The Tigers at a 5.09 xFIP. So even when Carpenter comes out, the bullpen's really hittable as well. And JD is my second best value of the slate in the outfield, that is, but that might be the entire slate too. I have to look at that. But I do love JD Martinez a lot, and I also like Alvarez a lot. I know it's a smaller sample size, that's why his projection's so way high, but definitely like JD a lot, and he's one of my favorite plays in the entire slate, which it's not a bold call or anything. He's probably going to be chalk, but just saying this is an example of what you'd get. It's got all the stats you need on there, and we got pitchers as well. Although pitching's been a mess this season, man. I hate pitching so much, especially recently. But anyway, all that stuff is on Patreon. We have UFC going to be posted very soon. We killing UFC this year, Andrew, I should say. I just do the projections and whatnot on there. But yeah, he's been smashing UFC this season. He does a little cash lineup on there, just an example. And I think that's actually just an example cash lineup. I think that's cashed like near 90% this season, which is insane. So hopefully I didn't just jinx him. And I know UFC should be really popular this week. I don't know too much about UFC, but it's I'm thinking I've heard it's like the biggest card of the year. I know he won't shut up about it, so he's excited. And then for NASCAR, we got Daytona this week, and that and Bristol are my favorite two tracks. So very excited about NASCAR this week. I think I have the right strategy for NASCAR. So for restrictor plate races, not restrictor, super speedways. So definitely excited for Daytona this week, and then we have the MLB model and the All Access. And I've actually been working on my NFL model for NFL season, so I'm very excited for NFL already. I've already got that pretty much halfway done. So if you guys are interested in all this, I'd sign up, and you can access to Slack, and you can chat us up and ask us any questions. All right. Anyway, enough of the commercial. Just had to get it out of the way. So anyway, let's get into the cheat sheet because that's why you guys are here. All right. So Zach Greinke at 9,700. Verlander is obviously in play, but I don't like attacking the Angels. I know they lost La Stella, but they don't strike out a ton. And obviously we've got Mike Trout in the lineup and Shohei Ohtani and some other decent guys as well. But I mean, losing La Stella is pretty big, but 12K, Verlander's 12K in not a high strikeout matchup. Not sure if I want to go up there because I do want to get some other bats in, but yeah, Zach Greinke's coming in below 10K, and he's been really good this season. And the Rockies are a much worse team on the road, so I think Greinke can get similar value with Verlander. I mean, obviously Verlander's still probably going to get over 20 points, but if he doesn't, that's going to be a huge bust to your lineup because you're going to be out there sacrificing bats, and then we can get Greinke at 9,700, and I think he's got 20 plus point upside as well. So I feel safer with Greinke, especially at that price. And then Julio Teheran at 6,600. I expect heavy ownership on him versus Miami with him being such a big favorite. And his advanced numbers aren't good, but he has excelled versus Miami so far this season. I think he's got 25 points and 18 points. And really at 6,600, we don't need much. We need like 15 points just to be hit value, and he's probably gonna be chalking cash games anyway. So I think he's the way to go at SP2, and also like Brett Anderson at 7K. I shouldn't say I like him, but his underlying metrics suggest he's getting lucky. I believe his ERA is around 3 right now, maybe 3.9, and he's an extremely low K rate around 11%. But I do love lefties versus Seattle with their high strikeout percentage versus lefties. And Anderson did get 18 points earlier in this matchup, so I don't think it's a terrible spot for him. I'm not excited about playing him, but I do like the A's tonight. I do think he can get a win. So Anderson is interesting to me, and he should have lower ownership than Teheran. And then a catcher, Alex Avila at 3,900. Love using lefties versus Sensatella, and he's giving up a 200 ISO versus lefties this season, and Avila has a 412 ISOs versus righties so far. If I'm talking quick, I got 9% battery on my laptop left, so let's hope we get this done. And then Danny Jansen at 3K. I miss playing him every night at 2.1K, but he's on a heater and he's facing Bundy, gives up a lot of power to righties, but it does come with a higher strikeout rate, but the bullpen's bad as well. Then John Hicks, he's just bare minimum 2K versus a lefty, although Erod is tougher on righties. And then at first base, we have Paul Goldschmidt at 3,600. So here we go again. I think this is day number 4, although the past 2 nights haven't been bad, especially at his price. So just way too cheap facing a lefty who gives up a lot of hard contact to righties, plus Goldie is very solid versus lefties with a 250 ISO versus them. Then Matt Olson at 5K. So this is one of my favorite sneaky plays of the entire night. I can't expect he's going to have much ownership at 5K, but especially in a lefty-on-lefty matchup. But Olson is killing lefties this season with a 420 ISO and 440 WOBA versus them. So he's been better versus lefties this season. I do like attacking Kikuchi in this slate. And all the A's are pretty much affordable, so they're really easy to stack. So I really like Matt Olson tonight. Can't expect him having much ownership. He's my low-owned Dong call of the night. And then Mark Hanna at, I think the H is actually supposed to be before the N. I don't know. Doesn't matter. 4,300. He's been hitting pretty well recently, and I like picking on Kikuchi. He's also been good versus lefties this season with a 225 ISO. Then second base, this looks like a position I want to spend down on. So I got Kiki leading off versus a lefty, and then Tommy Edman, 3,800. He's been pretty good so far since he's been up, and it's a very, very, very small sample size, but I think it's like 13 plate appearances. But he's got 308 ISO versus lefties, and he should be leading off, I'd imagine. And then Robbie Cano at 3,100. He doesn't have a ton of upside, but it's a great value at this price versus a guy like Vince, who gives up a lot of power and walks. So he can move out. He can be on, strike people out, or he can just be getting hit hard. Sometimes even both. And then at third base, we got Matt Chapman, 4,300. I do like the A-Stacks versus Kikuchi, and Chap Daddy posts a 343 ISO versus lefties. Manny Machado, 4,300. He's murdering lefties this season with a 480 ISO, and he owned Kirsch earlier this season with 2 homers, and killing the Dodgers this season as well. So I do like Machado. And then Tommy Edman we already talked about. At shortstop, we have Marcus Semien at 4K, just another cheap piece of the A's offense versus Kikuchi in that bad bullpen. Paul DeJong at 3,800, cheap righty versus Palm, and he's been hitting lefties pretty well this season. And I think we can go cheap home run hunting again with DeJong and Paul Goldschmidt. Then Machado we already talked about. In the high-end outfield, we have Nelson Cruz at 5,100. He has as much home run upside as anyone on the slate, and Simpson is a reverse splits righty, and it's a bad bullpen, so I do like Nelson Cruz here a lot. I'm hesitant to play the lefties versus, it says Simpson, I think it's Samson. Yeah, Samson. But I do prefer the righties. And then Mookie Betts at 5K. Love the Red Sox tonight versus Ryan Carpenter, who's simply awful, A+ ERA. I already talked about Carpenter really, so I don't want to repeat that. But Mookie's been pretty bad versus lefties this season, so that is concerning. So if we look at his off at his numbers in the outfield position here, so just another sneak preview. Mookie Betts, he's been pretty good versus righties, 231 ISO, 384 WOBA, but versus lefties, 087 ISO and 264 WOBA. So that's pretty bad. But his overall career numbers are really good versus lefties, but this season it's just not happening. So there might be some reason to get off him, but that's not really gonna get me off of Mookie Betts. I do like him a lot, and plus he's gonna see righties anyway in the bullpen. And it's Mookie Betts. And Ryan Carpenter is not like any other lefty. He is a bad lefty. He's basically batting practice, so still like Mookie. And then JD, I already talked about him. I'm not going to go in depth about that, but he's my favorite play of the night. And then in the mid-range outfield, we have Michael Brantley at 4K. He's just way too cheap, and it's an amazing matchup versus Felix Pena, who's awful versus lefties. He's the projected long reliever. He's giving up a 250 ISO and a high walk rate, along with a lot of hard contact to left-handed bats. Then Alvarez, the same reasons as Brantley, but just more power upside. And then the Mets outfield I like, so that's Dominic Smith, Michael Conforto, and Jeff McNeil versus Vince Velasquez. And then in the value outfield, we have Crush Davis at 3,800. He's just too cheap, and I expect him to have some pretty high ownership versus Kikuchi. Ramon Laureano, 4K, just another cheap piece of the ace stack. Adam Eaton at 3,800. The Nats have an implied total over 6 versus Keller, which I'm not too high on the Nats stack, but apparently Vegas is. And it's just, if you want some exposure to it, this is a cheap way to do it. And then J Mart at 3,600. He's been hitting really well recently, and he remains too cheap. And we got 5% left, so we might make it. But it's okay. So the core plays, I got Teheran at SP2, 6,600. Then JD and Brantley in the outfield. And my favorite stacks are going to be the Red Sox, the A's, the D-backs. I know I don't have too many D-backs listed, but I like the lefties versus Sensatella, and I can't expect they have much ownership at all. The Blue Jays, I know I didn't talk about them, but guys like Larry Scurriel really popping off to me. And I can't at the top of my head, but do like them. And then the Mets. And then I'll fill out the rest of that for you guys on Patreon. So anyway, guys, we made it. 5% battery left. Started with like 12, so that was risky, but we did it. Alright, so anyway, remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPinell16. Join the Patreon. It's pretty cheap, and I think you can get pretty good value out of it. Cover a lot of sports on there. So anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and best of luck.